5 months ago, Ozzy and Black Sabbath's final show, the massive event called Back to the Beginning, was announced, and it, of course, finally took place on Saturday, July 5th, with the original 4 members of Black Sabbath and a star-studded support lineup of legendary rock and metal bands. And today, we will go over every single thing important that happened. And spoilers, it was a truly fantastic event of epic proportions. Let's get into it. First things first, I have timestamps down below, so if you want to jump ahead to certain parts, you can go ahead and do that. But I want to start by telling you that I absolutely hate live streams, unless maybe they're on one of the major platforms like Netflix or something, although even those have their fair share of problems. But because of technical issues, I missed both Mastodon and Rival Sons at Back to the Beginning. I heard some audio from both bands. It sounded great, but for whatever reason, I mean, it is like they did not want you to mirror your screen from your phone or your computer, especially if you're on Mac. They did not want you to mirror it over the TV. So because of that, did not really get to see Mastodon and Rival Sons. I saw some videos online. Again, sounded great. I can't really say anything other than that. But to make that whole situation worse, I found out shortly after Mastodon's set that they brought out Eloy Casgrande from Slipknot, Danny Carey of Tool, and Mario from Gojira. So including Brandaler, they had 4 drummers on stage at once during their cover of Supernaut. I've seen it now online, and it was super cool, but very bummed that I missed it during the stream. Mastodon opened their set with Black Tongue, then they went into Blood and Thunder, and then Supernaut. It was a great set. I love Mastodon, and their new guitarist, Nick Johnston, he is great. He's a phenomenal player. I'm not sure if he's just a fill-in or if he's going to become a full-fledged member of the band. Obviously, Brent Hines is no longer a part of it, but Nick Johnston, great player, although I will say Brent is definitely missed. And then after Mastodon, Rival Sons played. They did 3 songs. They opened with Do Your Worst, and then they covered Electric Funeral, and they closed their show with Secret. I saw some comments in the during the live stream. Some people were not familiar with Rival Sons. I think they were just then finding out about the band. They actually supported Black Sabbath on the End Tour, and I had the singer of the band, Jay Buchanan, on the show. I interviewed him, I think, maybe last fall. I'll put a link to that down below, and we did talk about the tour, so you can check that out. But Rival Sons, phenomenal band, phenomenal set at Back to the Beginning. But the first band that I saw in full was Anthrax, and they sounded good, as they usually do. I was surprised that they only had a 2-song set. They did Indians and then a cover of Into the Void. And from what I recall, Anthrax was the only band of the entire show that only did 2 songs, but they did have a 15-minute set like most others on the show did until you got later on in the day. Some of the bands had more time. I think if you look at the actual set times for the event, Anthrax had 14 minutes, so a minute shy, but still, you get the idea. I would have liked to hear one more Anthrax original, something like Caught in a Mosh or something like that. Got the Time. I love that song. So definitely a little bummed that they only did 2 songs, but they did sound great as per usual. Halestorm was next, and they did 3 songs. They opened with Love Bites, So Do I, and then they did a new one. It was called Rain Your Blood on Me, and then they closed with Perry Mason. And I think that Halestorm was the only band that covered an Ozzy song. Everybody else did Black Sabbath songs. There were some of the supergroups, they did a couple Ozzy songs, I think, but Halestorm was the only regular band that did not do a Sabbath cover. It was Ozzy. I believe that's the case. And I thought they did a great job. I love Perry Mason, and I actually love the Osmosis album. Lizzie came out again a little bit later on with the first supergroup. We'll get into that shortly. My only issue with Halestorm's set, in my opinion, I wish they would have done a song instead of the new one that was maybe a little bit more familiar, maybe something like I Get Off or I Miss the Misery or something like that. It is, I guess, kind of a cool, ballsy move to play a song that's not even released yet, that nobody knows. But given the nature of the event and exactly what it was, I probably would have preferred a song that's a little bit more familiar. But overall, it was a good set, and the new song that they played, Rain Your Blood on Me, it wasn't bad. It was a cool song for sure. Lamb of God was up after Halestorm. They did another 3 songs. They did 2 originals, Laid to Rest and Redneck, which, I mean, let's be real, no surprise there. That is exactly what I would have thought they would have done. And then they covered Children of the Grave, and it really was a great cover, in my opinion. It was cool to hear Randy do a different style vocal than we're used to hearing with Lamb of God. And they actually just released a studio version of Children of the Grave on Sunday. So that was pretty cool and an unexpected surprise, to be honest. Overall, fantastic set from Lamb of God. They absolutely crushed. One of the biggest highlights, though, came right after Lamb of God, the first supergroup, otherwise known as Tom Morello's All-Stars. If you don't know, Tom Morello was the musical director of the event. He got a lot of these artists on board for the show. And this first supergroup was one of the things I was most looking forward to, aside from Ozzy and Sabbath, of course. And that is in no small part due to the inclusion of Jake E. Lee, who really has been fairly inactive in recent years, ever since Red Dragon Cartel kind of went away, even though he sends out all of his updates and stuff, communicates with his fans through their Facebook page, but they're not really an active band anymore. I don't even know if they exist anymore. And Jake E. Lee, he does some interviews from time to time, but not the most public guy in recent years. And so when Back to the Beginning was announced and Jake E. Lee was on the poster, that of course was a big source of excitement for me, for most everybody. I mean, who doesn't love Jake E. Lee? And I think a lot of people, myself included, were hoping to see Jake play Bark at the Moon, which he did acknowledge recently in an interview, but he also said it was difficult with the injuries that he sustained from when he was shot last fall. So he actually said that he wanted to do Ultimate Sin, which is in fact the first song that the supergroup played. After Jake finally showed up, he was a bit late to the stage, so everyone kind of stood around waiting, and they actually started to chant for him, and then he finally did show up. I think I saw somebody in the comments of the live stream say that he made a total rock star entrance, and that's exactly what it was. But he did finally make it out, maybe 30 seconds or a minute or so after he was supposed to. And the lineup for Ultimate Sin included, of course, Jake E. Lee, Lizzie Hale on vocals, Nuno Betancourt, which was so great. I love Extreme. I love Nuno. He is certainly one of the greatest of all time. David Ellefson was also there on bass, along with Mike Borden drumming and Adam Wakeman on keyboards. Then they went into Shot in the Dark, and David Draiman from Disturbed came out in place of Lizzie. And yes, as I'm sure you've seen, there were some boos in the crowd when he came out over his political stances, which he did address in a post on his social media, but that's really a topic for another day. The rest of the band stayed the same for that one, except I believe Nuno was out for just that one song. Nuno was there for the other 4 songs that the first supergroup did. After that came Sweet Leaf, which of course included Draiman, Nuno, Mike Borden, David Ellefson, and then Scott Ian from Anthrax returned to the stage. And then after that, it was Believer, another Ozzy cover, where Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe came out in place of Draiman, and I thought he did a great job on Believer. Also with him was Frank Bello from Anthrax, Adam Wakeman, Nuno, and 2 from Sleep Token. I was pretty surprised when Back to the Beginning was announced to see 2 as one of the additional performers, but it was pretty cool, and his new costume, I think, was super, super sick. So that was cool to see him come out and drum for a couple of songs. But in my opinion, the best cover of the entire event was the 5th and final song from the first supergroup. The song was Changes, one of my all-time favorite Sabbath songs, and it included Nuno, 2, Frank Bello, Adam Wakeman, and Youngblood on vocals. And my God, he just absolutely fucking crushed it. I really didn't know what to expect. If I'm being honest, I probably did not really have the highest of expectations, but oh my God, dude, just ridiculously good for real, and by far one of the biggest highlights of the entire show for me. Youngblood absolutely knocked Changes out of the fucking park. So all in all, Supergroup A was great. All the singers did a good job. The guest musicians did great, but without a doubt for me, it was seeing Jake E. Lee perform and Youngblood do Changes that were the highlight of the first supergroup. But with that, let's skip ahead a little bit and compare how Supergroup B was in relation to the first one, because there were quite a few heavy hitters in the second one. It began with a Symptom of the Universe drum off with Travis Barker, Chad Smith, and Danny Carey, which was really, really cool to see. Obviously, all 3 are great drummers in their own right, and they were joined on stage by Nuno, as well as Tom Morello, and the great Rudy Sarzo, which was awesome to see. I interviewed Rudy Sarzo like a year ago or something. I'll put a link to that down below if you want to check it out. We spent a long time talking about Randy Rhoads and all that. So again, that'll be linked below if you want to see that. And then next up were Breaking the Law and Snowblind, which featured Billy Corgan on vocals, Tom Morello, Adam Jones, Danny Carey, Rudy Sarzo stayed, and then KK Downing, which was so insane to see, so badass. When Back to the Beginning was announced, it was a bit surprising to not see Judas Priest on the bill, given how many legends were taking part in this thing. And when Sharon said that she kicked a band off of the bill, some people thought that it was them, but it was not. Rob Halford actually said that the band was invited to play, but they had already committed to the Scorpions' 60th anniversary show in Germany. That was on the same day as Back to the Beginning, so it really was just logistically not possible. Rob Halford, I think, would have loved to be there, so definitely a bummer to not see Priest, but at the same time, who knows if KK Downing would have been there if Priest was, and KK is just awesome. He's a total badass. His band KK's Priest is killer. I strongly urge you to check them out if you haven't. So it was super, super cool to see KK Downing do a couple of songs at Back to the Beginning. After that was Flying High Again with Sammy Hagar doing vocals. Nuno returned to the stage along with the great Vernon Reid of Living Colour, which was so sick, a way underrated player in my opinion. Then we also had Rudy Sarzo, Adam Wakeman, and Chad Smith. I gotta be honest, at least in my opinion, Sammy Hagar did not really nail Flying High Again. He did not really do the song justice. I mean, he's a great singer, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Sammy Hagar is an incredible vocalist, but when he was singing Flying High Again, I mean, a part of me was like, does he even know this song? I mean, he really is such a great singer, like I said. And then he even said like a month or two ago in an interview that he was doing Flying High Again, so he has had plenty of time to prepare for it. He's known for months that it was going to be the song he was going to do, and vocally speaking, to me at least, it really just did not turn out so good. The rest of the band was great. I was really not that impressed, though, with Sammy Hagar's performance on that one. But the same lineup, minus Vernon Reid, then did Rock Candy, of course, the old Montrose song. Sammy did much better on that one than Flying High Again, in my opinion. And then up next, we finally heard Bark at the Moon. Sadly, not with Jake E. Lee, but Vernon Reid returned, along with Travis Barker, Rudy Sarzo, Adam Wakeman, and Papa 5 Perpetua from Ghost on vocals. Overall, it was a solid cover. It seemed very fitting for Tobias Forge or Papa, whatever you want to call him, to sing. He did a good job with that one. It was great to hear that song. And like I said, I think it was very fitting for Papa to sing that one. But regardless of how good any of the second supergroup was, it was about to be completely overshadowed by the final supergroup singer. Motherfucking Steven Tyler showed up and performed a few songs. Obviously, it's been very well documented and publicized that he's had some issues these last couple of years, and the farewell tour had to get canceled. The band went into retirement, etc., etc. I think Steven did perform a few months ago at a benefit event for Janie's Fund, but I believe this was Steven Tyler's first public performance, at least in recent memory. Unfortunately, his grand entrance was kind of ruined because he was, I guess, having mic issues backstage before he came out. So I guess he couldn't hear himself, but we could hear him on the stream. I don't think he could hear himself, but if you were watching the stream, you could. I don't know if you were, if you could hear him if you were at the show, but on the stream we could hear him. It was pretty funny. He's like, "I've got no mic. I've got no mic." So then when the host Jason Momoa, introduced him, it's like, well, kind of took away from the surprise because we already heard him. But anyways, he came out. They did Train Kept A-Rollin' with Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. That was insane. Super, super cool to see. Nuno, of course, was there. Tom Morello, Rudy Sarzo, Travis Barker, and then Andrew Watt, who was, if you don't know Andrew Watt, he was heavily involved in Ozzy's last couple albums. He was also heavily involved in the last Stones album, Hackney Diamonds. But I gotta say, Steven Tyler sounded absolutely amazing. Better than I've heard him in quite some time. In my opinion, one of the best vocal performances of the entire show. I didn't even know that he was going to be there until that group photo came out, like a day before the show, I think it was. If it was announced that he was going to be there beforehand, I definitely missed that, but that was just insane. But after Train Kept A-Rollin', they went into Walk This Way and then Whole Lotta Love with the same band, minus Ronnie Wood, and then Chad Smith was replaced with Travis Barker. Again, not enough good things can be said about Steven Tyler's performance. I really, really do hope that it leads to more down the road. Maybe a few more Aerosmith shows, a proper farewell show in Boston, something like that. There has been some stuff in the news lately about Aerosmith maybe doing some more shows. I don't know. That's a topic for a whole nother video. we will see, but seeing Steven Tyler at Back to the Beginning was certainly a major highlight of the show for me. Both supergroups certainly had their fair share of highlights, some moments that were just okay, but if I really had to pick one overall, which one was better, for really no reason other than I want to, I guess, I don't know, but it is a tough decision to make. I don't know. I guess I would maybe have to go with Supergroup B, only because of Steven Tyler and how insane that was. But lest we forget how great that Changes cover from Youngblood was. And of course, seeing Jakey Lee appearing for 2 songs was incredible. So I don't know, maybe B, but I also think maybe A was better. I don't really know. But I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Let me know which supergroup you think was better, A or B. But now let's get back into the bands. In between the 2 supergroups, we had a pre-recorded video performance of Jack Black doing Mr. Crowley with Revel Ian and Roman Morello. I was already a bit surprised prior to the event to not see Jack Black anywhere in the promo for this, given that he is such a huge metalhead, and also that his Minecraft co-star Jason Momoa was hosting and not him. That was kind of surprising. I gotta be honest, I'm not really the biggest Jack Black fan in the world, but good God, he can sing. It was a super solid performance. And obviously, if you don't know, Revel Ian is the son of Scott Ian from Anthrax. Roman Morello is the son of Tom Morello. It was definitely a cool thing to see. But then we had Alice in Chains take the stage, and unsurprisingly, they sounded excellent. They opened up with Man in the Box, which, you know, I get it. I mean, it was the obvious choice. I could probably do without hearing that song. It is maybe a little bit overplayed. I would have rather hear something else, but I get why they did it. And then they did Wood, and then they covered Fairies Wear Boots, which is one of my all-time favorite Sabbath songs, and I knew Alice in Chains would knock it out of the park, but unfortunately, the audio on the stream cut shortly after they started the song, so didn't really hear it. And then it was rebroadcasted later on in the day, and it was, in fact, a great cover, so I am glad that they did replay it later with the proper audio, although they after that, they replayed some other moments from the show in between bands later on. I thought that was kind of pointless. I would have rathered some original content, I guess you could say, in between bands instead of replaying things that happened earlier in the day. But I don't know. I do get it to some extent. So it is what it is. But at the very least, at least they replayed Fairies Wear Boots from Alice in Chains. It was a great cover, but After AIC was another mega highlight of Back to the Beginning for me, and that is Gojira. They absolutely crushed it, as they usually do. They played Stranded, and then they went into Solvera. But without a doubt, the highlight of Gojira's set for me was the band recapturing some of that Olympics magic from last summer when they played Mea Culpa, and they brought out Marina Viati, who was also part of the Olympics performance. And while maybe not quite as epic as what they did at the Olympics last year, it was still a super epic moment, something I was not expecting to see. I'm not surprised that they played the song. I am surprised that they brought Marina Viati out. Just super, super cool. Definitely a major highlight of the show for me. And then they wrapped their setup with a cover of Under the Sun from Black Sabbath's Volume 4 album. Overall, a fantastic set from Gojira. And then following Gojira's performance was the second supergroup set, which obviously we've already discussed at length. So we will just jump straight to Pantera, who played right after the second supergroup. They had a great 4-song set. They did Cowboys from Hell and Walk. And then unsurprisingly, they covered Planet Caravan as well as Electric Funeral. And I would say that aside from Ozzy and Black Sabbath, Pantera's set was hands down one of the most newsworthy performances of the day, but not exactly because of Pantera themselves, but rather the host of the event, Jason Momoa, who we know is a huge metalhead, and he really proved it at the show by going straight out into the crowd right at the start of Pantera's set at the beginning of Cowboys, and he jumped into a circle pit. Definitely a very cool thing to see for sure. I will say though, as far as hosting goes, he didn't really come out on stage all that often, just in between every few bands. He came out maybe a handful of times in total for just a few moments each time. I guess overall it was a fine hosting job. And how he actually ended up with the hosting gig is kind of funny. He told Kerrang in an interview leading up to Back to the Beginning that he was begging people that he knows that are playing the event for a ticket. And then Ross Halfin, the photographer, he told him that Sharon actually wants him to host, so I guess it really all worked out for Jason Momoa. But as far as Pantera goes, it was a solid set overall, as you would expect. And then after Pantera came Tool, who performed 3 songs. They did 46 and 2, a cover of Hand of Doom, and then they closed things out with Anima. We were actually having a July 4th party the same day of the show on Saturday, so I actually had to run to the store during Tool's set. So I only saw a couple of minutes of them, but they did sound great from what I saw. Can't really say much more than that, but again, from what I've seen, it was a good set, exactly what you would expect from Tool. Moving on though to one of my favorite sets of the show, and that was Slayer, who I thought turned in a fantastic performance with a 6-song set. They opened up with Disciple, into War Ensemble, and then they covered Wicked World, and then into South of Heaven with a Wicked World reprise. And then, of course, Raining Blood and Angel of Death. It was seriously such a great performance. I really wish there were more opportunities to see Slayer live these days. They're kind of just doing one-offs since they came back following their farewell tour, but absolutely on top of their game. It was truly an excellent set, a great set list, I thought. Overall, one of my favorite performances from the show, hands down. Guns N' Roses was the next band to play, but in between them and Slayer was another pre-recorded video performance. This time it was Fred Durst, who also did changes, and it was good, but definitely nowhere near as great as Youngblood's cover of it, in my opinion. But I also really hate the fact that there were 2 covers of the same song. It just kind of killed the vibe for me, and it's really nothing against Fred Durst at all, but it just seems weird to have the same song played twice, but I don't know. Maybe things were being sorted behind the scenes right up to the show, and that's just how it had to be. And we knew Durst would have some involvement as his name was on the poster, but to me, that implied that he would actually be at the show. I don't even know if people that were in attendance at the show physically, if they even saw these video performances. I have no idea. So we knew, he would be there. And I guess at least he performed in some capacity, though, because Jonathan Davis was also on the ad mat, but he only appeared in a brief video thanking Ozzy and Sabbath or whatever, so he didn't even perform, which kind of sucked. And in a way, I mean, it was pretty much false advertising because Jonathan Davis was listed under additional performers. And there were also a few other celebrity thank you videos, or whatever you want to call them. We heard from Marilyn Manson, Jonathan Davis, Joe Elliott, of course, from Def Leppard, Dolly Parton, which was surprising, but I guess it was cool to hear from her. And then I did not see this or hear about it, but a buddy of mine told me that AC/DC was there, so I have no doubt that's not true. But if they actually did do a video, that's pretty cool too. But like I mentioned, Guns N' Roses was up next after Slayer, and especially after Slayer did such a great performance, I don't really think the same can really be said for Guns N' Roses. They also did 6 songs, but 4 of them were Sabbath covers. They did It's All Right, Never Say Die, Junior's Eyes, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So a couple lesser known Sabbath songs in there. And they of course also did Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City. It's not that it wasn't a good performance, because it definitely was. It was good, especially on the part of the band. And Axl sounded really the same that he has sounded for quite some time now, which it's all right, I guess. It's not terrible, but I wouldn't say it's great either. And I actually found their Sabbath covers to be more enjoyable than their 2 originals. I was surprised, though, that they did so many covers. I mean, 4 covers in a 6-song set is quite a bit, especially when you're talking about a band with a catalog like GNR's. I mean, there are so many songs that they could have played of their own instead of all those Sabbath songs, but also, as we do know, Guns N' Roses certainly likes to do cover songs, and they're also one of my favorite bands ever, so, it's a little disappointing that I wasn't the biggest fan of their performance. Certainly not one of my favorite performances from the event by a long shot. And then after GNR was the final band before the main events, of course, Metallica. And I believe this was the first time that Metallica and Guns N' Roses have played together on the same stage, on the same day, back to back, since that disastrous co-headline tour way back in the day. So when I saw this photo of Axl Rose and James Hetfield, it was a pretty epic thing to see them together backstage at Back to the Beginning. And just like the last few bands, Metallica played 6 songs as well. They did a cover of Hole in the Sky, Creeping Death, For Whom the Bell Tolls, a cover of Johnny Blade, Battery, and then they closed with Master of Puppets. And again, as with most bands throughout the day, a very solid set, a good set list, all pre-Black Album, which I gotta say was kind of surprising to see. And as we know, Black Sabbath more or less invented heavy metal, but Metallica is far and away the biggest metal band of all time. So to see them together, at the same show, almost back to back, was definitely very, very cool. And I think that really is something that applies to most of the performances throughout the whole show, is that, it made each performance that much more special, knowing that it was all an homage and in tribute to the godfathers of heavy metal, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Ozzy Osbourne, who of course finally graced the stage after Metallica. And obviously going into this event, There were so many questions about Ozzy's health. Was he even going to perform? If so, how many songs? What songs would he do, etc.? But all of our questions were answered when Ozzy rose up from under the stage on this badass black throne. I'd have to imagine, I think it is the same one that he used for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction last fall. And his solo band for Back to the Beginning included Zakk Wylde, Mike Inez, Adam Wakeman, and Tommy Clufetos. And I would be lying if I said that my eyes did not get a little bit watery when he was finally on stage. It was so great to just see him, because outside of some pictures and his radio show and things like that, really haven't seen him much publicly since his Hall of Fame induction. And I thought the same thing then. I will say it was definitely heartbreaking to see him in the shape that he's in. I thought that at the Hall of Fame induction. I thought that at the show over the weekend. And I feel like maybe to some extent he did look like he was maybe in some pain. But above all else, he really just looked so happy to be there, to be on stage, to be at this event that is really, you know, it was a celebration of himself and Sabbath. It truly was just such an incredible thing to behold. One of those things that really just gives you chills and goosebumps. Just, oh my God, man, it was just absolutely fucking insane. And my God, did he sound absolutely phenomenal, especially when you take into account how his health is. He blasted through 5 songs, which is what we had previously heard that he was going to do from Sammy Hagar, I believe it was. He did I Don't Know, Mr. Crowley, Suicide Solution, Mama, I'm Coming Home, and Crazy Train. So 4 songs from Blizzard of Oz, the first solo album, and then Mama, I'm Coming Home. Obviously, 4 out of the 5 coming from that first album being Randy Rhoads songs, which was awesome. And there was also a video of Ozzy and Randy playing together on screen behind Ozzy during Crazy Train, which was super cool to see. I'll see if I can find some footage of it, throw it up on screen. I figured there would be some sort of Randy tribute at some point during the show, so very, very glad that they did that. I will say, though, I was surprised to see Ozzy not do No More Tears. Sammy Hagar actually said that he wanted to do that one, but then he was told that Ozzy was going to do it, which is why he ended up doing Flying High again, but then obviously did not do it. And to that point, actually nobody at the event did No More Tears. That song was not heard throughout the entire, 10-hour day or whatever it was, which was definitely very, very surprising to say the least. But I will say, speaking of tears, Ozzy definitely seemed to be very emotional during Mama, I'm Coming Home, which I really think choked just about everyone up, especially if you were there. They were cutting the cameras to the crowd, and there were so many people just full-on bawling. It certainly was a very emotional set, but I thought it was a great set list. Obviously, there's a million songs that he could have done. One that I would have loved to hear, but was certainly not expecting, was See You on the Other Side from Osmosis. I love that song, and I do think that it would have been very fitting for the event, given what it was, but again, was not expecting to hear that one, but I love See You on the Other Side. Hands down, one of my favorite Ozzy songs. But it doesn't matter that they didn't play it. It was an absolutely incredible thing to witness Ozzy perform. A truly historic moment, and even if it was just that, to me it was well worth the $30 that I paid for the stream, even though I could have just watched the whole thing for free online the next day. But hey, it is what it is. And it was also so great to see Ozzy and Zakk playing together again. Zakk was not at that NFL halftime show or whatever it was a few years ago, so it was great to see those two together one last time. Overall, just a very, very emotional performance, and of course, a fantastic send-off for the Prince of Darkness. But Ozzy Osbourne very well may not have become the Prince of Darkness without his Black Sabbath bandmates Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, who together basically created a whole new genre of music, heavy metal. And without them, we would not have Ozzy's solo career, and we would not have 95% of the other performers throughout Back to the Beginning. So to see all original 4 members together on stage one final time right after Ozzy's solo set for the first time in 20 years or something. I think the last time Bill Ward played with those guys was like 20 years ago, 2005, I think. And obviously he was not on the last Black Sabbath record, 13, or on the End tour. Brad Wilk from Rage Against the Machine was the drummer on 13. And then Tommy Clufetos, who drummed for Ozzy's solo set it Back to the Beginning, he was also the drummer on the End tour. So to see the original 4 together again was a truly monumental, historic moment that will hands down forever go down in music history as they blasted through a 4-song set that I think were about the exact 4 songs that you would expect Black Sabbath to play, especially at the farewell show, and that was War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. And the band sounded phenomenal. Ozzy still sounded great as he did earlier. Bill Ward probably did not need to take his shirt off, but fuck it. He's Bill Ward. He can do what he wants. He's in Black Sabbath, and we are not. So fuck it. You've probably seen a ton of footage of the show online. You really do not need me to tell you how epic it was to see those guys together on stage for one last time here in 2025, 57 years or so after they first came together as a band, and I think it was 1968. I mean, just, wow, I get chills just thinking about it, man. I mean, just, oh my God. Truly one of the just greatest things I've ever seen. And one of the greatest moments of the Black Sabbath performance, it was actually not really shown on the stream. And I found this out through the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, who, if you don't know him, he's got a great YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that down below. And he posted that after Paranoid, the final song, Tony Iommi came over, he shook Ozzy's hand, and then the band gave Ozzy one last moment to be with the crowd. And then Geezer Butler actually presented Ozzy with a cake, as you can see in this photo. And there's also some brief footage of it online. Here's the clip. So yeah, I mean, really, what else can I say? To see Black Sabbath put a button on an absolutely legendary and historic career, it was seriously such an incredible thing to witness as a diehard fan of rock and metal, to see them and Ozzy both have a proper send-off with so many legends surrounding them. It was just, oh my God, dude. We really do not get many moments like this in the rock world. The next one probably won't be until there's something like this for Metallica when they do their last show, you know, or barring some, you know, major tragedy or something like that. So, you know, seeing something like what we saw over the weekend really was a historic moment, a rare moment, something that we do not see very often. And I'm really glad that they made this thing available to stream. And I am sure, though, that there will be more coming by way of a proper release on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, you know, maybe a documentary. I thought I saw somewhere that they were actually working on a documentary. I'm not 100% on that. I could just be imagining it, but I am pretty sure that I saw something about that, so who knows? But I suppose it probably is about time to wrap this video up. There's probably so much more that we could get into, but we've been here for a while. If you watched the show, or if you were even there, I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments down below. If you've made it this far into this video, thank you so much. Feel free to drop a like, subscribe below if you feel like it, and I will see you next time.